Hi, I'm Terry Murphy for the Women's Wisdom Network, Senior Editor for Realty Times, Women in Business, Women in Real Estate, and In the Men's Room with Murph. And today we have an exceptional woman in Women in Business. Her name is Lenor Madruga Chappell. She's the author of several books. Her story is incredible. It's inspiring. I'm going to let her tell you about it. Her book that we're featuring today is Women of a Certain Age, and that's going to appeal to a lot of us. She's going to give us some insights with grit and fun and inspiration. Welcome, Lenor.
Well, thank you very much. My pleasure, Terry. And if I could maybe do a little background on my first two books briefly, how I became a writer. Everyone always asks me that question. Lenor, how did you become a writer? Well, it happened because of a tragedy, a very dire tragedy. I was 32 years old, living the American dream in Tracy, California, with my rancher husband. I had two little girls, 5 and 2, and involved in modeling, radio, and horses and all of that. Just living the life. Life was great. And then the rodeo came to town. So I entered the barrel racing competition. So I'm in the paddock with my quarter horse champion. He's panting and snorting. I kick him. We race towards the first barrel, then the second barrel. Does a tight turn, the third barrel. He leaps, and like in slow motion, he loses his footing in the soil, and he falls on me, and the saddle horn smashes into my thigh. I got up. I seemed fine. I was hurting, but I'm okay. I told everyone. 2 years later, on that exact spot where the saddle horn had smashed into me, a hard lump appeared. So hard lumps, we're all concerned about hard lumps. So I went to my local doctor and he said, this looks very suspicious. We're going to do a biopsy, and they did. It turned out to be a very low-grade cancer, but because of its location on my pelvis, they had to get it out. So they sent me to the Mayo Clinic because I was so young and healthy, and it was just this lump. So they said, you have 2 options. We can give you massive doses of chemotherapy, radiation, or we can do a catastrophic surgery, a hemipelvectomy. I go, a hemi what? Yeah. Anyway, that's the amputation of your entire left leg and part of your pelvis. And I said, but wait a minute. Well, why can't you just dissect that tumor? Why do you have to take my whole leg? And they explained to me that the kind of tumor I had was a notorious seeder. So if they tried to do that, it would seed out to the other parts of my body. So I said, well, do you think you can cure me with this amputation? Well, maybe, but you'll never walk again. Okay, let's go for it. We did. And the amputation was a success, and they felt that I was cured. Of course, we have to make 5 years. So I get home. I'm recuperating on my couch in our old Victorian home. And my brother, who was a big-time author, Ernest Brawley, he comes home from Paris after his first book was published. And as I'm lying there, he says, Lenor, you've got to write your story. And I go, Ernie, let me live it first. So 5 years after living it, getting back on my feet, back with the children and taking care of my husband, riding horses, doing everything, Ernie comes back again. Okay, Lenor, how about let's get that book done? I said, Ernie, but I can't write. I'm an actress. He said, just write the way you talk. So he said, give me 1 chapter. We'll get it to the ghostwriter, and we'll see what happens. I gave him 1 chapter. He said, forget the ghostwriter. So he got me an agent in New York. We sent it off. The manuscript was titled One Step at a Time. So the agent has it in New York. And I wait, nothing. I call him up. I say, John, what's going on? What's happening with my book? And he said, and he paused and he said, are you ready to hear this? And I go, what? And he goes, the publishers are saying it's appalling. I said, appalling? What?
That's a strong word. Appalling is a strong word.
Yeah, appalling. That was the word. That I had cancer, that I lost my leg. What are they saying? I said, you know what, John? I'm coming to New York on my own dime, and I'm going to show these publishers that I'm not appalling. So I went to New York. My agent brought me into 3 different publishers. I pitched my book, and the image people have of cancer amputation, they think, oh my God, I don't want to see this person. Ooh. Anyway, I pitched my book, and when I finished, all 3 publishers opted for One Step at a Time. So how that was published. But well, if we have time, I'll just briefly tell you what happened in Europe. The same thing. They tried to send it to France. France said, no, 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 no. We do not want any books on cancer. Keep in mind, this was the early 70s, middle 70s at this time. No, no, no. Cancer is a death sentence. We do not want this book or this woman coming over. No, no, no. I went over again on my own. I met with La Presse Félicité, a publisher, with my agent there, pitched my book. And, they kind of looked at me because I walked in, I had my prosthetic leg on, my cane, I sat down. And after I pitched my book, he said, we like it. I think we're going to take it. There's just one problem. Do you speak French, Madame Madruga? And I said, no, monsieur. And he says, well, what a pity. You see, if you spoke French, we would bring you over for a grand tour. And I said, oh, monsieur, but I will. So 3 months later, I took Berlitz crash course, and I was able to go to Europe and promote the book. And it became a bestseller in France. And the greatest thing, I had 2 tours, is that it was chosen to spearhead the National Cancer Crusade of France.
I know, I was going to mention that. And the One Step at a Time became America's most inspirational book of the year. The interesting part about this new book, this latest book, Woman of a Certain Age, is that it really offers insights into things that we don't like to talk about, especially if I'm always surprised when women who are like in their 30s or their 40s, they're like, oh, they feel old, and you're like, whoa, everything still works. So, here you are paying the first part of your life with coping with an amputation, which unless you've, we can all be empathetic and sympathetic, but unless you've ever had something where you can't walk or you have to learn all over again, it's definitely takes some grit, and you've got it clearly. But then, turning 70, which
that was the thing.
Yeah, and you thought, my God, and then with wit and humor and frankness, you get 10 sagacious is the word, women to call out and examine how they continue to negotiate that dynamic current of aging. And it does take, when they say aging is not for sissies, people go, yeah, right, that's kind of snarky.
Exactly.
It's something. So there's a certain comfort that comes from this book, a persona. It's terribly personal and it's terribly precise.
Thank you.
And so, you address things like wisdom, love, finding joy, widowhood. Talk to us about the catalyst that made you go to that specific place to write another book.
It was when I turned 70, 9 years ago. Suddenly, I felt the fear of aging. I said, wait a minute. I've always relished life. I never had any fear about aging. And, I thought I'd already paid my dues, okay? I'd already lost my leg, cancer, lost my husband through divorce. I thought it's going to take a lot more to take me down than aging. Or would it? And I did not want to be a victim. I wanted to star in this, my third act. I wanted to thrive, not just survive. And so I wondered, am I going to be able to maintain this spirited life I've always had or not? And then I wondered about other women. That's how this came about. I thought, how are they managing the changing tides of aging? I wonder what their thoughts are. So I invited 10 sagacious ladies, and I sent them, this is what prompted them to respond. I sent them rousing and stimulating questions. I think they are. Anyway, I said, what scares you about getting older? Worried about losing your looks, your money, your marbles? Do you get pressure from your friends to have plastic surgery? One of the gals said, nip and tucks? Hell yes.
I know, I read that chapter.
And then, what is your legacy? Has your interest in sex declined? Or have you maintained an active sexual life? Physical talent challenges, did you overcome, accept, or not? Married or long-term relationships, how do you keep love alive? Then the chapter titles, I think this is really what spurred them on. I tried to motivate them with some provocative, I think, thought-provoking chapter titles. One was Face in the Mirror. And what we learned from that is that the only person that can make you feel less than beautiful is the person who's looking in the mirror.
Isn't that the truth? I mean, honest to God, I coach and consult with more women, including 2 Miss Americas. Ooh. And yes, even a Miss America who, by the way, has the sash and the crown and clear tactical evidence that people think she's beautiful. Every single woman, and I mean, I don't care, CEO, whatever, I interviewed 247 women with an industrial behavioral psychologist for Smart Women, Smart Choices. And I have to tell you, every single one has this fragility. And so I had a psychiatrist tell me that I was profoundly unattractive. That's what he said. He said, "You are profoundly unattractive." Whoa. And I did the same thing. I'm like, okay, I'm not Christy Brinkley, because at the time that's who was hot, and I don't look anything like her. But I didn't think I was profoundly unattractive. And he said, to an African witch doctor, "You are unattractive."
Unbelievable.
And that's what he meant, was what was beautiful to one person is not beautiful to another. Just like coffee and ice cream and whatever it is. I mean, you have preferences and your ideals. So,
right. So it's not so much what you look like, it's what you project.
Exactly.
That's what other people respond to.
And they love it if you have open heart. If you're, for me, it's about women helping women authentically. And that's why we invited you to Women's Wisdom Network. Because if you're sincere about helping someone step over the potholes, especially in mentorship, because when you've been down the road, Lenor, you know where they are. And to help people into this aging piece, which happens every day, kids. I mean, I don't care how old you are, but by tomorrow, you're going to be a day older. Right. So thank you for sharing that. But you talked about, you just came
I wanted to tell a little story about that part about Face in the Mirror.
Oh, do?
Yeah, and how it is. I have a little story that reflects that about age and your looks, etc. My husband and I were in Costa Rica, and we were at a hotel, and I wanted to go swimming because I love to swim. And when I swim, it feels like my legs are kicking in unison just as before, and I swim with such freedom. Anyway, crutched out to the pool, whipped off my cover up, and dove in. So all the people are watching me going back and forth. When I finished my laps, I splashed out, and I looked at them all, and I said, "I bet you thought I was a mermaid." You're not going to believe it. They started clapping. And then
they did.
Over, and they said, "I'm so glad you came swimming. I have a child or a parent. They're so ashamed of their disability. They would never show themselves." And, I truly think that I am a mermaid because I do not fear great depths, but I do fear shallow living.
Okay, now that's a call.
Maya Angelou. That suits me fine.
Isn't that just fabulous? Well, where I was going with this was, you kind of over the divorce part, and you were younger then.
Right, and it was the demise of my marriage was had nothing to do with the disability. No, it had to do with my sudden quasi-celebrity, being out on the road. I kept saying to my husband, who was a Portuguese rancher, "I just want you home." And I said, "But honey, this book seems to be inspiring so many people. Come on, let me do this." And so when he left, I must admit that losing my husband was worse than losing my leg.
I wanted everybody to hear that, because divorce happens. I mean, it's just a reality. Divorce happens all the time. Yeah. But to having that physical loss and recovering from that, and having 2 little girls, exactly. And then having this beautiful opportunity to share this as a gift as opposed to a victimization.
Thank you. That's
and then losing your it's like, oh my God. What else have you got? Bring it on.
I was 42 years old. I had 2 teenage daughters at the time, no financial support, and I was disabled. And I found myself suddenly single. 8 years later, who do I meet?
Oh, the hunk of the hunk.
The man of my dreams.
Yeah, with a name like Chappell. I'm like, not fair. And he's wonderful, and he's gorgeous.
Let me tell you how I met him. I think it's cute. It's a cute short story. We're in Santa Cruz now, my girls and I. And my daughter's on the beach one day, and she was with a friend, and she brought the friend up to my apartment. And the friend looks at me and she says, "You ought to meet my dad." And I said, yeah, does he wear cowboy boots? And she goes, yeah, and he flies his own plane. I said, tell him to come on over. And he did. And he's been over for 30 years.
Okay, so that gives me chills, okay, because that's just, not only did she get the plane and the cowboy boots, but and they're still so much in love. So, but how did you pick 10 women? I mean, I've got friends, I have friends all over the world, and we all do, but this particular group of 10 women are extraordinary. Tell us about the selection.
And they're all friends, you know. One is one's just not just, but a housewife. Okay, but boy, she had a lot to say, Sharon Carter, and what she's experiencing as a housewife, not out in the professional world. Then we have a PhD, Diana Kugel. She has 6 books written. Then we have a gal who's an actress in local theater, and well, actually San Francisco theater as well. And then we had my sister. She's 81 years old. She's on the cover of the book, if you can believe that's her. And she runs a horse ranch. So I thought these are all diverse, unique women. They all got to have something to say about these questions that I want to send them and these chapter titles. And boy, they sure did.
Well, it is terribly personal.
Yeah.
As you get into the women, because they contribute in different places in the book. So it's not just, a story about each one. And one of the things that occurred to me was the dichotomy of thoughts. So one's like, give me the nip and tuck, I've got this. And the other one's like, no way,
right.
Yeah.
No way.
Yeah. And so I think there's a wide level of appeal here, Lenor, but what, in your opinion, would you want your reader to take away from reading this? Because some of the women you're going to agree with, and some of the women you're going to think, oh, that's so not me.
Right. Well, I want them to take away that, growing older is a privilege, really. It's a privilege. And I think when they started sending me their answers and everything, they started thinking, wow, I'm beginning to feel better just because of having to answer some of these questions. And one of the questions that I really liked, and boy, did I get some jaw-dropping responses, was titled Seduction, right? So I'm writing that chapter, and I call my daughters and I say, Daniela, Christiana, what do you think about this? Mom's writing this about seduction. And they said, too much information,
yeah,
Mother.
I was just going to say, those girls had to go, oh, please don't.
Right.
Mom, just don't.
Yeah. And so I hope, and the book also is, it was conceived initially as a book for mature women, but it turned out to be a map, if you will, a compass to younger women, so that they can view aging not as an ending, but as a transformation. And
you just hijacked where I was going with that. It's, because at some point, you're reading about some of these stories where some of these women had their challenges. And that's why I asked you, was it joyful? Is it dealing with age head on with a mental attitude that changes everything? Or is it depressing? I found that if you learned about these women as you go through the book, you realize that some of them had some pretty heavy challenges in their life.
Exactly. Today I received a thank you card just before I came over here from a gal, and she said, Lenor, I just finished your book, and I must tell you, I don't feel so much alone anymore. I thought I was the only one going through all of these things about aging. And your book, all of these women touched me. I'm not alone anymore. I get the hairs on the back of my neck go up. I just read that before I came over here. Beautiful.
Yeah, it's a beautiful little book, and you've got some more coming out. I know that you've been on tour and you're doing great with it. It's women of a certain age. It's a great book to buy for someone else who may, especially like, I think everybody goes like, oh, I'm turning 50. It's like, so what?
So what?
Yeah, so what? 50's a baby. But to get this book for a good friend or somebody who may be struggling with not just what you went through, because I just happen to know that when you have a physical altering like you did, right, that really puts some stuff in your head. And I've I know that goes through. So tell us, where can we get the book?
Okay, it's on Amazon.com. Also Barnes & Noble, Target, but you can also get it on my webpage, lenorchappell.com. And you can also get my other two books, One Step at a Time and The Next Leg of My Journey, on iUniverse or my webpage. And you can glean a lot of information about my lectures, my life from that webpage. You even see me water skiing.
I know, I saw the video. And
did you see the video?
I'm hoping that our editors put some of that in there, because I'm thinking, oh my God, I can't do it.
I couldn't do it when I had two legs, but when I only had one, I had my...
And then you have to get in a bathing suit, which is not going to happen either. But you did write The Next Leg of My Journey, which really discusses the breakup of that marriage. Yes. And the joy. You're annoying. You're so joyful with Mr. Chappell.
And I have another cute story. Do we have time about the joyful part of...
I'm the editor. You've got all the time you want.
All righty. Well, when I started dating Roy, he's a pilot, a private pilot. And by the way, he's very hard of hearing. And of course, in the top of one of the chapters, I put, Roy walks for me and I hear for him.
I know.
But anyway, so we've been dating a short while, and he says, okay, would you like to go flying up in the Sierras and we'll camp out? Well, I'd never camped before, and I didn't particularly like small planes. And his was a 1948 Super Cruiser, PA-12, one of those you use in the bush. So anyway, we're flying tandem, we fly up to the Sierras. He parks the plane, ties it down. Other planes are on the runway because we're getting ready for an air show. And then he comes over and puts a chair. I sit in the chair, he hands me a glass of wine. Then he's putting his pup tent under the wing of the plane, and I'm going, so this is camping? Hey. So then, come night, all the pilots are going back and forth to the hangar for the festivities. So I'm in the pup tent, ready to go to bed, and I open the opening, and I said, Roy, what am I going to do with my leg? And he comes over and he gets my leg, puts it over his shoulder, and he trots up to the plane, puts the leg in the cockpit with the foot against the windshield with the tennis shoe and the jean hanging down. So the pilots are going back and forth during the night, peering in. By morning, we heard two pilots look into the cockpit and say, boy, does that woman ever have stamina?
You know, how gracious is it? There's so many messages here, and I know you'll join us again. The messages are, first of all, there's great comfort in women helping women. And I think that's at the core of Women's Wisdom Network. And that's why I think the universe put us together. Mm-hmm. There's another level of women mentoring women, which is helping them transform, as you mentioned.
Yes,
from one chapter to another. And there are chapters, kids, whether your kids are small now, they're going to go to college, and when they go to college, and then they get married, there are all these transitions. Mm-hmm. But if we help each other with the right attitude and vision, and that collective intellect and experiential capital from other women, it makes the journey I don't want to say easier, but I want to say that it gives you confidence.
Right.
Because when we know other people have been there and done that, that's how we help each other. And then clearly self-acceptance, which is one of the toughest things I've noted in my work with women. If you're short, you want to be tall. If you're tall, you want it goes on and on. And when we learn to love ourselves despite, and in your case, a very visible, very obvious altercation, I'll say.
Right.
It really is all about women helping women. I'm going to encourage you to get the book, read it yourself, pay it forward, bring it into your book clubs, because it's terrific. It's Lenor Chappell, no E, Lenor, Chappell, Chappel.
Do I have time to read a little bit from the last chapter, just a snippet from the last page of my book?
Absolutely.
The reason it kind of brings together what we all came to understand after they contributed to my book and after I wrote my anecdotes and crazy stories of discovery. Anyway, in the last chapter.
So hold on one second. I'm going to do a break here, Celeste, and it is at 33 minutes and 54 seconds. So we can cut this piece off and use it. So I'm going to open it, and then I'm going to ask you to read. Okay, so hold on.
Great.
I'm Terry Murphy with Lenor Chappell. She's going to be reading from her amazing book, Women of a Certain Age. We've got a whole interview on her. You're going to want to check it out on Realty Times News and Realty Times TV. But Lenor, why don't you read us just a little bit about your book, From Women of a Certain Age?
Okay, I will. This is the last chapter. The last chapter was titled What I Know Now. So all of these gals wrote what they know now. And that was pretty provocative. Anyway, the women of a certain age are too often portrayed as meek or weak or like invisible little mice. I hope that this book has played a role in changing these outdated notions. As I collected these marvelous, insightful stories and essays, I came to realize that our strength is in knowing who we are and what we bring to the table. We have discovered that our experiences have connected us to the necessities and rewards of living in a way that our younger selves couldn't possibly know. If I could sum up what these remarkable women have in common, I would have to call it resilience. No matter what we have faced, collectively or individually, we have learned that forward is the only direction worth pursuing.
What a beautiful way to end this interview. Again, I'm with Lenor Madruga Chappell. She is the author of several books. The one we're reviewing today is Women of a Certain Age. If you're interested in helping women, which is what we're about at Women's Wisdom Network and share at Realty Times, get yourself a copy of this book. It's available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and of course at Lenor, is it Lenor?
LenorChappell.com.
.com, yeah, because I know you have a couple of other. She's amazing. She's just amazing. And if she can do it, we can do it. And I hate when people say that, but the truth is, yes, you can. I'm Terry Murphy for Women's Wisdom Network. Thanks so much for joining us, Lenor. Join us for more segments on how women help women.
Okay.
Women's Wisdom Network.
Thank you very much.